I'm William Gallagher. I'm head of digital delivery for what we call and it's quite long, it's quite a mouthful here, for the buildings, infrastructure and advanced facilities for Jacobs. I'm also part of the global technology platform team where I represent Europe. And my opposite number for that is Ian Hardcastle, and he's here today, and he looks after APAC for us. So if there are any really, really difficult questions that you want to ask me, wait till I get on a plane, and then I'll give you the details of this guy here. Okay. My current day job is head of BIM for Smart Motorways program. It's an interesting and challenging program because it's the very first program of works that Highways England has taken on since the BIM mandate. And we'll give you some stats on that later on. We'll have a chat about that too. I'm also the project manager for one of our key innovations on that program as well. And we're going to touch on that a little bit later on too. So this is my first time in Australia. I've had a great time so far. I've been up in Cairns for most of the time, and I thought that's what the weather was like everywhere. And as I said to some of our colleagues last night at dinner, you know, I'm from Scotland, if you haven't already noticed that I speak differently. I'm really a warm-up act for David Phelps, who's on tomorrow, who's also a pal of mine and comes from Glasgow. A tan for me is when you can't see my veins, you know? So, let's have a wee look here. Oh, have we got the clicker? I don't have the, what is it? All right, okay. Okay. So we're going to have a little chat today about a few things. You'd always say you should never apologize before you do a presentation, but that's pretty much what I'm going to do. And the reason why I'm going to apologize is because of what we're going to try and cover here, it's going to sound more like a lecture than and my wife always complains about that. You know, you're always lecturing to us. But that's kind of what it is. It's about what you need to do, what you need to be looking at, what you need to be careful of, what you need to pay attention to in order to deliver BIM level 2 to these projects. So kind of a wee show of hands, how many owner-operator clients do we have in here? So both of you turned up. That's good. That's terrific. And suppliers, so designers, and then contractors. There's an awful lot of people in here have come for a free lunch because, you know, there's a gap. There's definitely a gap. Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to briefly touch on disruptive technology and really about what that does for BIM, very, very slightly, mostly through my lens and my role and what I experience. I'm going to touch on the benefits just a little bit. I'm not going to get into all of that. You've heard that a million times before. We're going to go over the key components of BIM as I see it on our program at the moment. It's not a definitive list. There's more and less depending on what you are and what you're doing. And then we're going to end up with what does BIM business as usual look like, and then we're going to have a little look at some of the innovations that we've done on the program. So that's get out of jail card. So Jacobs, little introduction to Jacobs. We're a leading professional services firm delivering solutions to a connected and sustainable world. You know, we're 40 countries, employ 77,000 people, 15 billion turnover, Fortune 200 company. So we're pretty sizable, I guess. Our vision, mission, and values here. Mission to be the world's premier design, no shocks there. But our values are interesting, and they're based on this foundation of safety and integrity. And I'm Scottish, so I question and doubt most things, right? Absolutely do, you know? But I believe in this. I believe in this. So it's good. And there was another piece I wanted to actually share with you before that, but we'll get to it. I suppose I really need to move on because there are quite a few slides. So recently, if you're in our side of the business, you'll know that we've just acquired CH2M. That's about 30,000 people. And we believe that that's an opportunity for us to build a different type of company, a company that doesn't currently exist today. And here's this is the difference in our relationship model. So the kind of industry model is the discrete projects and transactional projects. We are much more relationship-based in our clients. We look for repeatable work from clients and building that relationship. Here's a nice little graph to tell you where we are. Noticeably not in Russia. And this is our value proposition since we made the acquisition. So CH, we're sitting here, as you can see in the middle. Jacobs, we're a little bit further along there. And at the very end, when we've combined, we're up this end here. Here's some of the businesses that we're in. Environmental solutions, you know, this is NASA up the top. Nuclear, of course, this is data centers, technology, buildings, as you would expect, aviation, advanced facilities, which is really the pharma bio type of the world, water, and of course the one that I'm mostly involved in is transport. We're also big in the oil and gas side of the business, so what we call energy, chemicals, and resources, and we're in mining, which I believe is pretty big here in Australia. This is Smart Motorways. So we're going to have a little introduction to Smart Motorways and tell you what it does before we kind of move into the BIM aspect of it all. I'm going to share with you our clients' imperatives before I do that. And the reason why I'm doing that is that I really think if you look at your clients' imperatives, what's important to them, and even when you're delivering BIM, if you can use that as a sounding board and say, I'm delivering against this, I'm delivering against that, I'm delivering against this, then you know that you're on the right track, right? So, of course, the customer is really important to Highways England, improving the network to minimize delays. Delivery, we're always looking to deliver in an efficient, effective way, and you can imagine that BIM ought to be part of this. And this, I think I missed one out. Did I miss one out? Delivery, oh, I did. Safety is the bottom one. Not very good, I missed that one out, really. So what is a smart motorway? So a smart motorway is the use of technology, various types of technology like radar, camera, stop vehicle detection, a whole bunch of stuff there that helps us to turn, using signage to turn off and on the lanes and the variable speeds that happen on the motorway. And that includes the hard shoulder. I think you call that the emergency lane. So that's using that emergency lane in the future. And the thrust behind all of this is the capacity has got so bad that, or congestion has got so bad that we need to find a way of kind of in a costly way of increasing the capacity. And what we've done over the years, there's a little bit here that tells you about that. Over the years, we've been trialing the use of opening up that emergency lane and closing it back down again. Now, it's on the whole, it's been hugely successful. But the reason why it's taken so long from 1995, as you can imagine, this is a big deal, right? People are really, really cautious about moving into this lane, you know? So it's taken us a while to figure some of this stuff out. We put control motorways onto the M25. And almost immediately we went from a gridlock situation to, okay, you're only going at 40 miles an hour, but at least you're moving. And I know this, I live near the M25. And then we moved on further, we started to put a lot more of the gantries and infrastructure over here in 2006. And you can see the emergency lane is being used here. And then the ultimate goal is that we're going to steal real estate from the Central Reserve, and we're going to steal real estate from the hard shoulder there, from the emergency lane. And using that together, we're going to create another lane. And then we're going to create what we call emergency refuge areas. We've just taken the refuge out. We thought it wasn't the best thing. So it's emergency areas. And those are effectively laybys that you can pull into. That has given us 33% capacity for 60% lower cost than the traditional road widening. And it's given us the confidence to put this onto all of our major roads, connecting all of our major cities, London, Leeds, Manchester, Birmingham, all of them joined together by smart motorways. So that's the expectation. Here's some of the numbers. There's 143 miles built at the moment. We've spent 3 billion, invested of 512 miles. And what's interesting for me, and really from a data perspective as well, which we'll get to later on, is that it covers 18.2%, yeah, just under 20% of the motorway. Now, before I came to Australia, I thought 512 miles was quite a long way. But it don't even get you into the next page in your map, does it? Yeah. It's, you know, you get one of those big rollout maps, you're still on that first foldy bit, you know. Oh. So from a BIM perspective, it's a £5 billion program. It will have 47 projects. It has 15 tier 1 designers and contractors. So that's the top of that's the Balfour BTs and the Staines and the Jacobs and everybody else is in there. So it's a really terrific place to be to see what the landscape of BIM is and how well people can deliver. At the end of it, we're going to deliver over 40 million asset data attributes. Not assets, but data attributes, 40 million of them. So we need some tools to be able to manage that. And we're probably going to be pulling in round about just under 11,000 models, individual models. Oh, wrong one, sorry. I'll get the hang of this yet. So quick look at BIM as a disruptive technology. This is how it's described. I think Andrew said earlier on, there's two types of new technology. One of them is when you're just changing stuff incrementally along the way, and the other one is, and I should try and find this here, because I like no, we don't have time for it. But the other one is where it's really disruptive. You know, it's going to change the way you work. You don't know how you feel. It's worth getting this up because it is. Yeah, so the term was coined 1997. And it says disruptive technology lacks refinement, often has performance problems because it has new appeals to a limited audience and may not yet have proven to be a practical application. Well, I would say that 2 years ago you would say that was BIM, would you not? So how is it disruptive? People, you heard lots of people talking today about the type of people you need to be hiring. You need new types of people, mathematicians, you know. You need to be able to retain them, attract them, different skill sets, computational design, market resources, because there's not enough of them out there. You've heard that before. And then you need to put training in place to make it happen. On the process side of things, you're going to do things differently. You're going to be more connected, more collaboration. Every single workshop I've ever been to in collaboration, it always starts with the idea that if you think collaboration is easy, think again. It's very difficult. You're going to be using different tool sets. Your IT structure is going to get some changes to it. Where I met Ilsa before was at a cybersecurity conference in Cambridge. And then there's some other interesting little bits and pieces that may happen in the future, like blockchain and hackathons and stuff like that. On your business development front, it changes. Bids and tenders are asking for BIM. So how do you answer the BIM question? How do you price it? What's the competition doing? It kind of is disrupting the market, yeah? And it's the very same from the procurement side of things too. We've heard that today. It's the exact same, but it's from a client perspective. How do they buy these services in? And finally, I think you also heard today that contracts are a huge part of what BIM is. To enable BIM, you have to have it written into your contracts, yeah? So on the benefits of BIM, The mandate, we're calling it now, because it's not really a UK mandate. David will stress that point tomorrow. Everything's different in Scotland. But interestingly for us, Jacobs wrote the Highways England BIM business case. And our value for money analysis showed a BCR, that's a benefit ratio, cost ratio of 4.3 to 1. And that's rated really high by the Department for Transport. So I'm not saying you're going to save 20% on your project, but if you invest $1 million, you'll get 4.3 million back. And I think and one of the things when I was talking to Shannon about this group of people and who the audience was, he didn't want any BS, right? And so I can't give you numbers because we haven't released them ourselves, but I can give you ideas of what numbers are there. And these are real ideas. These aren't fictional numbers. So on the BIM benefits map, we did this with the stakeholders. This wasn't the client that did this. This wasn't the industry. Well, it was kind of the industry, but it was the supply chain, all the stakeholders, traffic management, police, contractors, designers, operations, maintenance, the client. We were all in a room and we come up with this BIM benefits map. We won't go into it, but it's the usual kind of a stuff that comes up. You get savings during the design phase, savings during construction, the maintenance phase, benefits safety, and better decision making. And in this part about safety, there's no money attached to that, but for some key clients, for our key clients, this will get you through the door. If you can click that button. And I think it was Andrew also talked about, you never underestimate the engagement with the public, especially when you're talking about big infrastructure projects. They have a great deal of influence on this. So the visualization aids us in having those conversations, opening up good conversations with the public. So what's the benefits to you guys? Why would you do it? Apart from the fact that maybe your client's telling you to do it. Well, if he's telling you to do it, you do it to win work. You've got an opportunity to leverage your resource, change the people that you've got. You can do more with less people. You can prepare for the future and kickstart your digital transformation. On the first two projects, major projects we put on, and this was just our own savings, we saved 100K just on our first project by putting our first piece out there. Don't get me wrong, we were BIMing for years before that, but it never really worked up until this point. You get to attract and retain resources and deliver to what your client's looking for and get more work. So here are my top 9 BIM components piece. I think number 1 is and this sounds like it should be from the client side, but it's not. It's just as important to you as a supplier. It needs to be clear in the contract what they're asking for. It needs to reference that employer's information requirements document. I think Richard mentioned you have a similar type of document. It mitigates these, when you get into these, when you start to get contractual, you're doing this, you're not doing that, it helps to mitigate those conversations. And you absolutely need to be clear about what you're buying and what you're delivering. Above all, for me, the big ticket item for me in benefits for BIM is all about data and asset information. So any client that you have really ought to have this in place. He needs to know, he needs to understand what information he needs from a business to run it, what that looks like, and then what to ask the client and the employer's information requirements to the bottom. Essentially, he needs an asset information strategy, and it's shocking how many do not have that and don't realize the value that this can bring to them. One of those documents is that employer's information requirement, and this is the client telling you what it is they want. Yeah, it talks about formats and standards and information exchange points. It talks about the digital plan of works. I probably should have put that slide before, but we'll get to that in a minute. It talks about the level of detail, the graphical detail, what it should look like. I hear stories about 200, 300, 400. You look at PAS 1192, And the biggest question I get from those 15 tier ones is, what does that mean? So if you're inside, and it's not just what it means, but what does it mean at what stage? What does it mean? And if you're inside a model and someone's giving you a picture and it's a, on pass 1192, I don't even think it's a bridge, it's something like a steel structure, and they're talking about a highways, what does that really mean? We did a little bit of work on that, we're still working on that, and what we're going to do is reverse engineer it. So we're going to say the graphical information is really driven by the level of information required. So if you need this level of information, then you need that level of detail in order to tag it to it, yeah? So we're kind of reversing that a little bit. But it's a big question. Of course, the EIR is referenced in the contracts, so that's how you're going to be measured. And then it tells you the standards you need to adhere to. The BIM execution plan, I'm guessing there's a BIM execution plan, Richard? It's the same, and that's the response to the EIR. So the client says, I need this, and this is what you say, this is what it looks like, yeah? This is what I'm going to do, it's also your opportunity to say, no, I don't think we should do that. I don't think this is valuable. I don't think this is going to cost more money, all that kind of stuff. So that conversation can happen at the same time here. And we don't need to go over the standards, Richard covered it, but you need consistency of deliverables. You need to be able to find information. You need exchange information, systems integration. You need all of that kind of stuff in order to work with joint ventures, to hand information over from design to contractor to operations. You need to have a sort of consistent language in here. And it includes all the boring stuff, right? Like file naming and document numbering, and all the CAD standings and CAD standards, the layering and Uniclass 2015, EN 184, PAS 1190, all that sort of stuff is inside here. And I would really recommend that you write a CDE protocol, and we'll touch on the CDE in a second as well. That's the common data environment. So another part is the common data environment. You need to have that in place. How many people use a CDE at the moment on their projects? Right, so it's not a lot, right? That's a handful of people. I struggle with how are you going to do BIM if you don't have a means to exchange information? Something you really need to look at. I think I did a presentation to a Japanese delegation in the UK, and this is the only part they wanted to know about, how to do this part here. And for me, it needs to do a couple of things. It needs to be able to do validation and verification. It needs to manage not only documents and processes, but models, documents, and data. So it's not a one-stop shop. It's not pulling something out of a Bentley box or an Autodesk box or another box, even although they all need configuration too. And I would certainly include, if you're in infrastructure, I would include GIS in that too. The digital plan of works is, these are the stages that every major company, key client that we have this plan of works, and it just determines, what the phases of the project might be. And these are really important in BIM because you want to be able to say, I want at this point here, I want this delivered. At this point here, I want this delivered, and level of detail, level of graphical and non-graphical detail. You need to be able to map it out onto this stage. And this comes up time and time and time again. I don't know if your clients have this, but your big clients certainly ought to have this approach. I'm not going to talk about the project information model. You all know what it is. It's multidiscipline, 3D, it's intelligent, it's federated. You heard all that today, so I'm going to talk about that. And then the supply chain. So that's you guys, right? Most of you guys. And events like this and conversations amongst you guys and exchanging information is really probably the most powerful piece in the whole BIM story. Yeah? A couple of things happen from a client perspective is we run BIM maturity assessments on the projects. So we assess every single project, and we assess them at different points in that digital plan of works. Yeah? And we assess them on these 8 competencies. And under each of those, there's maybe 8 questions. And those 8 questions are yes, no answers, but you need to provide evidence in order to get the score. And that results in something along these kind of lines here. And that gives you a conversation. And the other thing is, what's the point of doing all of the, what's the point of getting BIM and waiting to the very end and then telling your supply chain, oh, that's not what I wanted. So this is the opportunity to make sure that we're on the right track. This is another part of where we got all of the stakeholders together. We talked about those outputs earlier on from the stakeholders in the supply chain. We did the same thing here. And these were the outputs of a big workshop that we did with everybody involved, right? And they're really quite straightforward, given the size of that benefits map you saw before. That was also an output from this. And one is that, the client needs to be really clear about what he offers you and what he wants back from you. And that was across the board. Everyone says, then we need clarity in this. You need it in your contracts and all the other bits and pieces, yeah? We say program and project delivery will be based on an intelligent digital environment. I think that was number 1 in Andrew's presentation. Collaborative behaviors become the means to how you improve your project delivery. The common data environment is in here too. And processes, I'm going to be honest with you here, this bottom one about consistency, I'm still working on how we deliver them, honing them, refining them. They're not perfect at the moment. Because everybody wants to deliver the way they've always delivered, which was really designed so that nobody knew if you delivered at all. So I suppose the question is, and I've heard it in here before, so a client's asking me for all this BIM. BIM's costing me a whole load of money. I've got to invest all this stuff to make it happen. And of course, the client they're drinking the Kool-Aid because it's easy to do that, right? So something new and shiny comes in the market. Oh, we want some of that. We want that. We're going to put on it. We're going to ask all you guys to give us this. And they're also drinking the Kool-Aid, which says, oh, and there's going to be 20% savings all the way. We're all going to be really rich on the back end of this. So when you say it costs more, they say, no, it's going to just be less. It's less. Not more, less. Yeah. So what do you do about that? How do you deliver these efficiencies? How do you price? Because they're always asking for innovation and stuff like that too, right? They're looking for added value. How do you get scope for all of that sort of stuff when you're under pressure to do something really quite new to you, and you're looking at tools and stuff to be able to deliver all that stuff, and it's costing you more money? It's quite stressful. The whole thing is quite stressful. So for us in Jacobs, what we decided to do, and the only way to do this is to make BIM business as usual. And here I'm going to tell you a little. No, I'm not supposed to, tell you about our dirty laundry out there, so I probably shouldn't, but I am anyway. Which is that in Jacobs, in highways, in the UK, our highways team was recognised in the industry and within our company, and Ian will probably testify to this, that we were one of the sharpest BIM teams out there. We were leading the way. We were leading the charge. We were in the vanguard. Our very first BIM assessment from a client, we got 14%. And that's the best. Now, the good news is, so did all of our competitors. They got the same scores, and quite a few of them were a bit less. So, that really upset our management. They went away, said, this isn't right, this is terrible, because this is a metric for the client, all the rest of it. The next project we got audited, and we got 90%. So everybody is really, really, really happy about that, except me. Because we did that as a separate exercise. We got 90%, but we had a whole bunch of people over here working Saturday and Sunday just trying to get this score up. So it was either costing, I'm going to say it didn't cost our client, but it cost us money in terms of, where's the value there, right? So what you need to do is get 100% just because that's the way you do business. And that's what business as usual really means. In order to do that, you need to look at your people, process, and the technology, right? Number one, you got to get, I'm not going to tell you all the stops and steps here that we put in place, but number one is you got to get some governance in place. And this might look different from where you sit. But for me, this is governance for me. We got Viv Gandhi as head of business. He's the vice president. You got the head of operations. You got your two portfolio leads because they own the relationship with the clients. You've got business development. You got your sales team you want to do there. And we also have a portfolio lead for what we call adjacencies and when we're doing work overseas. So you need something like this to start you off. And then there's my digital delivery team. So at one point, this was like herding cats. They're all really smart people. Every single one of them are smart people. But they were all doing everything for everybody. And it meant we were going nowhere. So we hauled it all in. We hauled it into highways. And then we gave them jobs according to what they did, what they could specialize in. And that's what you're seeing here. So there's a bunch of stuff you would imagine. We've got somebody looking after the governance communication. We've got somebody looking after the systems and the tools and the development. That's the guys that go to the gunslinger meetings and the Autodesk stuff and all the rest of it. Probably the most important person on here is this project information manager, and you'll see why in a second. We have a BIM, as a result of all of this, we're now selling BIM services to other clients. We're getting good at it. And then we have innovation and automation in here as well. When I started on the first project I had a look at before we put our team in place, I think we had between 9 and 12 BIM people booking to the project. And I spoke to the project manager and I said, you got 12 BIM people booking to this project. What are they doing? She says, I wish I knew, Liam. I really wish I knew. But she says, apparently we need them. We need them all, you know. In fact, we can't get enough of them. So I said, that can't be right. So those roles in black that you see there, and even this one here is that's really just a junior of that's like a training exercise. There's only really 2 roles on here. That is the only 2 BIM roles we have on a project. And that's on a £6 billion project. Not the one I'm talking about, that's on another. That's not on the SMP. This is on one of our other projects. Now you have all of that support team below that you saw before. You can draw on all of that stuff to do what you need to do and put new stuff in place and look at innovation and all the rest of it. But that's all we have. Yeah? And the second one, and the first one is the project information manager. And that's like, they've got to be a buddy to the PM. Absolutely. The PM has got to trust that project information manager because he's going to be responsible for the budget of the 12 people or not, as it may be, right? He's going to say, yes, we can bring technology in. Yes, we're going to do this. No, we're going to do that. That's the key role for me. And I got that from the oil and gas industry because that's my background, is oil and gas. And then we have a project technology coordinator. So the project technology coordinator reports into the PIM, and it's their job to go set up the CDE, set up all the training, set up all the tools, get all that stuff working. That's what they do. And they'll work on, I think it was Amanda was saying, so they'll work on 4 projects, yeah? We're supported by a bunch of other services down the left-hand side here, including what you would expect, like IT. So on the little journey, here's a couple of steps I would say where you need to go if you want to get yourself into BIM business as usual. You need to determine what your current state is. Where are you at the moment? We had a lot of offices, and you'll see it in a minute, and I would say, so how does such and such office do? And people would say to me, oh, they're rubbish. So what do you mean they're rubbish? That's not very objective. What do you mean they're rubbish? How are they? Oh, they're not bad. I say, so we need to find out how good they are. So we put something in place called the 4QMM. You'll see it in a second. And then you need to understand what your future state is, where you're going to try and get to. I would then suggest, and we're at the tail end of this at the moment, where we're creating digital workflows. So we took every single, in highways, there's really six key disciplines in there. We took every single one of them, mapped them down. First thing we did was just find the gaps, automate, shove it down, make them a bit more effective. The guys in the team liked that. They were getting something out of that. And that made it, when we moved them to a digital workflow, that made it that little bit easier because they trusted us then. And then at the very end, you have to join all six up. You need to say what goes from where to where and how it goes there. Taking your schedule down and your costs down, yeah? You need to find, configure, and Amanda, she's doing that at the moment. It's not Amanda, is it Amanda? It is Amanda, yeah. Amanda, yeah, she's finding tools that she's configuring, developing that enables that delivery. You do need to do that. And I would keep in mind this piece here, this minimum viable product. You don't want shiny wheels and holes in the roof and tricky windows. You want something that does the job. So this is what a 4-quadrant matrix looks like. That just shows you there's a whole bunch of questions in the back end, but what it does is it puts a dot on the map and tells you whether you're an early adopter or lead. There's your journey up here as BIM business as usual. So this is just a little kind of a display. So what that allows us to do is we know exactly where each office is, and because of the information at the back here, we can also build them a plan to get them from there to where they need to be. And different offices have different challenges. This is just a look at the workflow. So this is, for example, this is structures within one of the disciplines, and we're mapping it up against the digital plan of works to say that, you know, we don't do any work down that end. We do it at 3, 5, and 6. So that's where we kind of need to concentrate on that discipline. Video. I think. So one of our big challenges is all about data. It costs £300,000 to pull data together. No music. So in the same way that Amanda looked for a tool to do some of the work she's doing, we did the exact same thing here. So every client that we have wants their information delivered in a different way. So we've got to be able to do that and do that in a smart way. And this is what this tool does for us. As I said, it can cost up to 300,000 just to do this piece in a highways job. We do this pretty much at the push of a button. Yeah, I know what you're thinking. Yeah. The silhouette is work in progress. Yeah. Yeah, I get that. I was doing better before I went to Cairns, let me tell you. So another tool we've developed, we have 47 projects. We need to be able to manage them. I also think I heard Amanda talking about that too. So we did something in here with Highways England using a tool called BC. What it does is, again, we take the digital plan of works, and you can see them. That's those different columns along here. Something inside BIM needs to happen for every single one of those phases, yeah? And if you take just one of those phases, pull one of those pieces out, it then tells you what needs to happen in there in order to turn that from a red to a amber to eventually to a green, which means that we can look at our whole portfolio of projects and we know exactly where they all are. And now all the roles and responsibilities that are in here are all inside the business, right? So innovation and automation, we're going to try something a bit clever here. So that's not going to work. Right. So this is the Highways England Innovation Roadship Map, Relationship Map, beg your pardon. This is some of the innovations we're working on. I'm glad you saw lots of this stuff today so we can flick through it pretty quick. This is how we manage it. We manage it through 4Ds. That's discovery, develop, demonstrate, and deliver. And PMLs are project maturity levels that happen. So just talk about these. So what the process for this, we put out what do you call it, SurveyMonkey to all of the supply chain and everyone else, and we asked them for ideas. There was only a couple of rules. One was don't think your idea is stupid, and don't think that somebody else has put that idea in. You know, that was it. And we had 250 great ideas. We did some filtering of that, and we ended up taking on these 12. We've still got a backlog we're going to do, but this is the ones that we have at the moment. So beg your pardon. You may get a bit seasick here. This is a Prezi. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but that's the process. Rapid engineering modeling we're going to touch in a minute, so don't worry about that. Some of the parts of it. Who's involved? Brydenwood, you saw getting mentioned earlier on. They're a key part of this. Modular projects. So we're looking at those ERAs, those emergency areas you saw. We used to do those in a traditional way. Now we don't. We just roll up with 2 vans, pull them off the back, and join them up. It's not that simple, of course, but you know, there's a 50% saving in how we do that. Same for some of the signs we're looking at. We're looking at non-steel structures because they're lighter, easier to deploy, and you know, given that we're going to have autonomous vehicles in the future, all of these signs, and think about your car, it's the biggest computer you own. We don't need all of that stuff. It's all going to come in-house, right? It's all going to come in-car. We're working with academia, Loughborough, and a whole bunch of other universities and this stuff. Family bases, every single base that goes down on the highway, every single one of them was bespoke, designed. Every single one of them. Every hole in the ground. That's got to be crazy, right? Cabinet farms are the same. These are the farms that contain all the electronics that, all the electrics that work the signs. And so we're also looking at energetic crops. So we're looking to harvest energy from the motorway for the future, so that as you drive along, your vehicle is going to be getting powered up at the same time. Of course, we've got to figure out how you charge for all that kind of stuff and whatnot. But nobody ever thinks about, we're all going to go into electric vehicles, but nobody's saying, you know, how you need a small power station to run these things, right? So we're talking to Shell, Amy Care. You might recognize some of these names. You see lots of companies involved with this. AECOM here. Looking at ultra-low power. Digital component library. Every single piece component that goes on the library, we have a digital component. We have a BIM digital component, and they're intelligent, they're parametric, and they all have as much asset information as they possibly could have at that stage. And then rapid engineering model, virtual augmented reality. I've got to be honest with you, of course we're doing this, everybody's doing this, but we're looking for the killer app, yeah? We're still trying to think what the killer app for this is, but we're into it. Technology Development Centre, that's a little playground that we have in the middle of nowhere in a really nice part of the world where it's an abandoned airport, and the fire services use it to do their training, and so we get to go there and build our stuff there. And there's abandoned buildings, and they have a zombie apocalypse there at the weekends. How cool is that? You can just go there and there's a lot of zombies walking about. It's a bit like Glasgow on a Saturday night. Drone surveys, you heard about the drone survey stuff. I think what's a little bit interesting here is we're also doing drone material delivery, so we're going to deliver stuff up and down the network, and we're looking at embedded assets. You've heard about that. Cobots and robots, we're looking at that. I mean, the safest thing you can do in a motorway is not have people on it. It's the safest thing you can do. So we're having a look at that with the advanced manufacturing companies. Inflatable safety barriers. McLaren are in there. We're also looking for drones to come along to incidents and scan the whole scene, so that they can scan the whole scene, they can go away, and then we've got all the information we need for later on. Yeah. Wearable tech, we've parked that for the moment, but we are, because it's a little bit of an intrusion, but we're looking at monitoring heartbeats. Are you able to drive a truck, all this kind of stuff. There's lots of stuff in there. Okay, I think that's a bit done. What do I do to get back, Ken? Ken? Oh, we're back. How cool is that? So this is rapid engineering modeling. I do want to talk to you about this a little bit because this is quite exciting. We're working with Jacobs and Brydenwood and Highways England are working on this at the moment. Need my little thing. Where's my little thing gone? What did I do with it? Think differently about design. This was the challenge. It's about standardization equals rules. So if you can imagine this sort of stuff, there's a whole bunch of stuff that goes on here that we're repeating and repeating and repeating. So we're trying to match up to what we call the Pareto rule. Who knows the Pareto rule? It's, so 20% of the effort gets you 80% of the solution. So that's what we're trying to do here, yeah? It's a data-driven approach to the design. And you'll see a little video in a minute, but essentially what we're doing is we have the rules in the middle, the rules and the validation, and then we have some digital analysis going on in the corner here, and then we have the digital component library that then allows us to throw the whole thing together at the end. Video, please, Ken. So you'll see how it works here a little bit. Some numbers. What you're going to see in a minute is you'll see the drone survey, or what represents we pick up the drone survey for all of these areas on the left-hand side. The edge details, the boundaries, all the rest of it. And then we do some data visualization, some analytics on that, and then we turn that into a kind of a RAG status. So what that gives is how viable is that piece of road for visibility, for gradient, for this, for that, for the next thing. And once we know that, we then have a digital component library in the top right-hand corner. And because we know the rules, you can only put one of these here, here, and here at these spacings, and you can't put it next to a bridge, and you can't put it on a big slope, can't put it on a bend, all that kind of stuff. We then populate the scheme. And what that means is that now our engineers only really need to think about the hard bits, where it says computer says no. And the same goes for the environment. At the moment, we're only looking at these pieces, these 5. But we take all of that into a risk, and that could be badgers. You can't go here because it's protected species and great crested newts and all the rest of it. So at the moment, the way engineers do this, at the moment they have PDFs, they have drawings, they have screens, they have a whole bunch of stuff. Now they don't need to do that. And we get to tweak it as well. So when the computer says no and you have an area that's red, the engineers now go in and use the tool to adjust the engineering. And of course, at the back end of that is all this great reporting that you get, which is all he needs to really make some of his decisions, and it's all in one place. So if I were to tell you that in ops concept, if you think about that digital plan of works, the very first part is operational concept. That's what we call it anyway. That usually takes 9 months with a team of people. We now do that in 4 weeks. So that's 9 months, big team, to 4 weeks. Over the project, over the whole program rather, and I can't give you the exact number, but I would say it's probably savings in excess of 120 million on the program. Of course, Jacobs are doing exactly the same stuff. We're part of this, but we're also doing it in tunnels, doing the exact same thing in tunnels. Here's where your mathematicians come in and your computational designers come in. And of course, we're pushing all our 2D deliverables out. They're all dynamically linked. And we're doing exactly the same with some bridges. We're still at the beginning of this, but we're doing it with bridges. Okay. Retaining walls, lots of opportunity. Another thing we do that I think is really interesting is we put a project portal in place. That's one place you can go for all your information on the project. GIS should be using it if you're in infrastructure. And no presentation would be good without a guy with a pair of goggles on. Okay? So. Just want to finish up by introducing this. We talked about mathematicians. This is Abraham Wald. He was what they call a soldier mathematician during the Second World War. And the US Navy came to him and said, we want you to help use your mathematical skills to help us solve a problem we have. All of our aircraft are coming back from their raids, all shot up. And of course, the Navy and the Army, they're great at collecting data, but they wanted his skills to try and make some sense of it. And what they wanted to know was where should they reinforce the planes so that they could save lives when they come home. And of course, they come up with this sort of stuff here. And they said, well, this is where we need to reinforce the planes. And Abraham Wald took one look at it and said, no, these are the planes that came home. You need to reinforce them where there are no bullet holes. Yeah? So I think what I'm trying to say there is that's the power of data, but it's how you look at data and how you think about data. Yeah? Thank you.